My name is Elena, and today, at the age of 50, I feel strong enough to tell the love story that shaped my life, in ways even time has not been able to. I never married, not because I did not believe in love, but because love came to me in a form I was not ready for, at a time when I was not brave enough, and in a way I feared the world would never understand. Now that the years have softened the pain and sharpened the memories, it is time I speak about the man who changed my life, disappeared from it, and still lives inside my heart as if no time has passed at all. I was born and raised in a quiet coastal town where the sea touched everything, even the conversations we had as children. Life there followed predictable rhythms. Mornings smelled of wet sand, evenings tasted of salt in the breeze. My father was a fisherman, gentle and patient, and my mother ran a small bakery with warm lights and warmer bread. I grew up believing life was simple, steady, and unshakable, but life never warns you before it bends in ways you cannot imagine. I was 18 when everything began. That summer was hotter than usual, the kind that made the air shimmer like a mirage. Our town rarely saw new faces, so when a stranger arrived, carrying a single worn-out suitcase, and the quiet sadness of someone who had lost more than he would ever say, everyone noticed. His name was Adrian. He was 25, tall, with thoughtful eyes and a quiet way of listening that made even the shyest people talk. No one knew where he came from or why he chose our little town, but he rented a small room beside the library and spent most of his days reading or walking by the shore. I first saw him through the bakery window. He walked slowly, as if trying to memorize every detail of the street. Something about him felt familiar even before I knew him. Maybe it was the loneliness in his face, maybe the way his shoulders carried invisible weight. I did not know then that he would become the great love of my life. Our first conversation happened purely by accident, and I had gone to the back of the library to return a book, and he was sitting on the floor, completely lost in reading. I tripped over his outstretched foot, dropped my books, and he looked up at me like I had broken the silence he was hiding inside. He apologized. I apologized, and somehow we ended up talking for an hour. He had a calm voice, kind that soothed something inside me that I had not realized was restless. From that day on, Adrian became part of my everyday life in a way that felt natural, as if we had known each other for years. We walked together, talked about dreams, hopes, and fears, and shared quiet moments by the sea. He taught me how to listen to the waves as if they were speaking. He showed me how the world looked through gentler eyes. He never touched me, never hinted at feelings, yet everything inside me moved toward him without permission. But as summer deepened, so did the mystery around him. He never spoke of his past. Whenever I asked, he would look away, smile faintly, and change the subject. Sometimes I caught him staring at the horizon with an expression I could not name, part longing, part regret, part fear. I wanted to ask more, but love often grows in silence, not questions. One evening in late August, the sky painted itself in orange and violet, and we sat together on the rocks near the water. The wind carried the scent of seaweed and gulls circled overhead. Adrian seemed different that night, more open, more fragile. He told me that he had come to our town to escape something he could not face anymore. He said he had made mistakes, trusted the wrong people, and ended up losing everything he cared about. He did not go into detail, but his voice trembled once, just enough for me to feel the depth of his pain. For the first time he told me he was afraid, not of anything specific, but of being unable to fix the parts of himself that had broken along the way. I placed my hand near his, not touching but close enough that he could feel my presence. He looked at me then, really looked, and the sadness in his eyes felt like an ocean pulling me in. That night was the first time I realized I loved him. But life does not give love without testing it. The very next day, Adrian disappeared. No note, no suitcase, no explanation. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. I searched everywhere, the library, the cliffs, the docks, every road leaving the town. No one had seen him leave. It was as if he had never existed. The ache that followed felt like someone had carved an emptiness inside me with a dull knife. For months, I lived in the quiet collapse of waiting. I checked the post office every day, hoping for a letter. I walked the places we shared, hoping for a sign. But winter came, then another summer, and he never returned. People told me to forget him, that he was probably a drifter, that young hearts attached too quickly. But I could not forget a man who had taught me how to feel the sea breathe. Years passed. I finished school, helped in the bakery, and tried to live a normal life. But a part of me remained suspended in that summer. I never loved anyone else with the same depth, the same quiet certainty. Men came and went, kind ones, gentle ones, persistent ones. But my heart remained faithful to a man who might not even remember me. At 25, I left the town and moved to the city. I found work at a publishing house surrounded by stories that reminded me of the one I had never finished. My parents passed away in my 30s, and grief became a second home. Life changed in 1,000 ways, but one thing stayed the same: the memory of Adrian. Then, when I was 40, something happened that shattered the years between us. I was visiting a coastal city for work, and while walking through an outdoor art exhibit, I froze. There, displayed on a canvas in bold strokes of grey and blue, was the sea of my childhood, the exact view from the rocks where we used to sit, the same angle, the same light, the same emotion. Written at the bottom corner was a name I had not spoken aloud for 20 years: Adrian Hale. My heart pounded so loudly I thought people could hear it. I asked the curator about him, and she told me that Adrian had become a reclusive painter, rarely appeared in public, never stayed in one place for long. His art was known for capturing loneliness with breathtaking honesty. She told me his studio was nearby. I went there with trembling hands. The building was old, quiet, and smelling of paint. The door to his studio was open just a crack. I pushed it gently. Inside, the room was filled with canvases, skies, oceans, cliffs, shadows, light and darkness intertwined, and standing near the window, paint on his hands, hair still messy in the same familiar way, was Adrian. For a moment I could not breathe. 20 years had changed him. His face carried more weight, his eyes more shadows, and a thin scar crossed the left side of his jaw. But it was him, the man who had disappeared without a word. He turned, saw me, and the brush slipped from his hand. The silence between us stretched like an entire lifetime compressed into seconds. He whispered my name, not with surprise, but with the heaviness of someone who had carried it for years. I asked him why he had left, why he had vanished, why he had never written. The look in his eyes was the same one he had on that August night, soft, broken, full of words trapped behind fear. He told me everything. He had been involved with dangerous people who had betrayed him, used him, and threatened those he cared about. When he came to my town, he was hiding, trying to stay alive. When he realized he loved me, he panicked. He feared staying would put me in danger. So he left without goodbye, believing it was the only way to protect me. He had planned to return once things settled, but life dragged him into chaos. By the time he gathered the courage to find me, years had passed, and he thought I had forgotten him. I told him I had never forgotten. He cried then, not with loud sobs, but with quiet tears that held 20 years of regret. We spent hours talking. We walked by the sea again, older now, carrying more stories, more scars, and for a moment it felt like time had folded into itself, bringing the past and present together. But life, once again, tested us. Adrian had a heart condition, a serious one. Years of stress and running had taken their toll. He had known for months but avoided treatment. The doctors had warned him he needed surgery soon. He had been painting as if racing against time. I stayed with him through everything, his treatment, his recovery, his relapses. I cooked for him, read to him, comforted him through nightmares of the past. For the first time we loved each other openly, without fear. It was gentle, quiet, deep. The kind of love built on surviving life instead of escaping it. But in the end, love could not save his body. One winter morning, when I was 47, he passed away while watching the sea from his window. He left behind a letter for me, written in trembling handwriting. He said that meeting me again had healed parts of him he thought were beyond repair. He said I was the only home he had ever known, the only peace he had ever felt, the only love that had ever been safe. He signed it with a single line: "I never stopped loving you, not even for a day. I am 50 now. I never married. People say I wasted my life waiting for a man. They do not understand. Love is not measured by years spent together, but by the depth of what it awakens inside you." Adrian gave me a love that reshaped my soul, A love that survived 20 years of silence. A love that returned only to leave again, but left me whole in ways I did not know I was broken. Some loves stay, some loves leave, and some loves return only to remind you that the heart never forgets what it was meant to hold. Mine stayed. And this is the story of the man I will love until my last